Welcome to another episode of From the Desk. Something really disturbing happened today at the U.S. State Department. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was giving his last press conference when this happened.
The names of those who have been arbitrarily detained and unfairly held hostage, unjustly held hostage, and bringing them home, returning them to their families, returning them to their loved ones. Finally,
get your hands off me. 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 Answer a damn question. Do you know about the Hannibal Directive? Do you know about Israel's nuclear weapons? Everybody from the ICJ. I was sitting here quietly, and now I'm being manhandled by 2 or 3 people. You pontificate about a free press. You pontificate about a free press. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. I'm asking questions after being told by Matt Miller that he will not answer my questions until I ask him questions.
Sir, respect the process.
Wasn't the point of the May 31st statement to block the ICJ orders? You blocked the ICJ orders.
Please, sir, respect the process.
Respect the process. Respect the process. While everybody from Amnesty International. From Amnesty International to the ICJ saying that Israel is doing genocide and extermination. You're telling me to respect the process. Criminal! Why aren't you in The Hague? Why aren't you in The Hague? Why aren't you in The Hague?
Finally.
That's journalist Sam Husseini being forcibly removed for asking why the U.S. blocked the ICJ orders. Now, this was really fucked up to watch a journalist being forcibly removed this way from a press conference in the US while the Secretary of State keeps yelling out, "Respect the process." And it's becoming more and more clear that people are a little delulu about what is happening all around us. Professors being fired, journalists just going off the air and no one hearing from them anymore. Students being hunted and expelled. Every single industry that you can imagine. And anyone and everyone that is speaking out about Israel's genocide of the Palestinians is being made to suffer, each in their own way. And in both Canada and America, a wave of far-right fascism and nationalism is bringing deplorable governments to power. Recently, I got my hands on a copy of Milton Meyer's brilliant book called They Thought They Were Free, the Germans, 1933 to 1945. Meyer was a Jewish American journalist who went to Germany in 1935 wanting to interview Hitler, but quickly realized that it's not Hitler he should be speaking to, but to the millions and millions of Germans who fell into line. So he ended up interviewing 10 very plain Germans, a baker, a teacher, a banker, and he was fascinated by watching the slow drip, the little by little of how Germans just fell into whatever was happening in their society. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be alarmist, but that's exactly what I see happening today. People who are speaking out, being called radicals, being fired, and just being told that what they're doing is the problem. You see, what was most disturbing to me about that video that we just saw was not necessarily what Sam Husseini did, but the statement of respect the process and then the silence of his fellow colleagues as he was being manhandled and physically removed from the room. Even more disturbing to me was what followed and how this event was framed by CNN. Watch this.
He was repeatedly interrupted by some cringeworthy heckling by activists. I mean, we were both sitting here pretty stunned, frankly. This is supposed to be a press conference with a room of journalists. Those were activists who were interrupting the Secretary of State when he initially was thanking the press and talking about the Israeli-Hamas deal.
Yeah, I think it's really surprising. A lot of our viewers will have seen protests on Capitol Hill, for example, during confirmation hearings, but it's very rare for something like that to happen at the State Department. I'm over there all the time in that briefing room, and you need to have a reason to be at the State Department. You need to have an appointment. You need to have press accreditation to come and go. So it's unclear who those people were. So I think there's a real security question there.
I'm sorry, but everyone knows who Sam Husseini is. Everyone who's been watching, at least over the past 16 months, these nauseating press conferences that were given by Matt Miller and Blinken and all the other people. Everyone knows who Sam Husseini is. He's accredited to be there. If not, he wouldn't be allowed to be there. But this CNN journalist refers to him as a heckler, as an activist. What's even more cringe, so cringe, is how the other guy in this interview frames what happened to Sam Husseini. Watch this.
Allow me to be cheesy for a moment. This is a testament to American democracy and the way that American administrations approach their press rooms. They give accreditation to a wide number of journalists and increasingly what I would call less mainstream journalists, more opinion journalists, who have the opportunity to go to the State Department, to go to the White House, and to ask questions of the representatives of that administration. So I'm always amazed by, whenever I go to these different press rooms, about who's actually sitting there. It's not just Americans, it's people from all over the world, from Turkey, from China, from South Korea, who get to ask questions of people like Matt Miller at the State Department or Karine Jean-Pierre at the White House. And so there's a relatively open policy for now in these different press rooms.
Isn't that the ultimate twist of what actually happened? This guy takes the forcible removing of a journalist inside a press conference and then frames it as some sort of pinnacle of American democracy. This is doublespeak. This is the doublespeak that Orwell warned us about. Removing a journalist as an example of America's democracy. I mean, what are we saying here? Wake up. Let me read you an excerpt from Meyer's book, because I think it really best encapsulates the times that we are living in right now. What happened here was the gradual habituation of the people, little by little, to be governed by surprise, to receiving decisions deliberated in secret, to believing that the situation was so complicated that the government had to act on information which the people could not understand. To live in this process is absolutely not to be able to notice it. Please try to believe me, unless one has a much greater degree of political awareness, acuity than most of us ever had occasion to develop. Each step was so small, so inconsequential, so well explained, or on occasion regretted, that unless one were detached from the whole process from the beginning, these little measures, it was like day to day watching a farmer in his field watch the corn grow. One day, it just ended up being completely over your head. On Sunday this week, TikTok is going to be banned in the US, unless something changes. And that's because the youth are on TikTok. That's because the youth are no longer buying the Israeli narrative, the promulgation that the Palestinians are the problem. Understand what is happening all around us. Trump has already said that any student who protests against Israel is going to be deported. These are the statements that we're hearing. Wake up. Your silence won't protect you.